Wonderful. Right, we like to begin with a question, don't we? So I want you to talk to each other a little bit about the word authority. Okay, authority. And what does that conjure up for you? What experiences do you have? What feelings do you have related to that word authority? It could be about family, it could be about teachers, it could be about employers, could be about law. Authority. Have a word with each other, okay? What does that say to you? Do you give in to it? Are you a rebel? Okay, I'm not going to ask for feedback, but it's just to sort of get us thinking about this whole idea of authority, okay, and how we respond to it, and what we feel about it, and all those things, okay? So what have we been doing? Thank you for the way you've led this morning. It's been brilliant. So we're coming through the Easter story, and Matthew 26 and onwards has been telling us, hasn't it, about the way that the leaders decided that they wanted to kill Jesus, the way that Judas decided to betray Jesus, the way that he met with his friends in that upper room and shared that incredible time together, and he led them off into Gethsemane, and there was that heartbreaking time of prayer, and then the arrest, then taken to an illegal trial before the highest council of Israel. And then there's torture, and there's crucifixion on the cross, and death. But we know that's not the end, because we've celebrated Easter Sunday, so we know that Jesus rose again, and that he met with friends. They turned from shock to and disbelief to joy and to freedom and to celebration. Jesus is alive. So we're going to pick up the story from Matthew 28. So if you want to turn to your Bibles, that's what we're going to do. Matthew 28, verse 16. Going back a little bit earlier to verse 10, Jesus was with the ladies there, and that's obviously a wonderful story just in itself. And he says, "Don't be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There you will see me." And I'm picking it up in verse 16. We read, "Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age.'" So I've got 3 questions that I want us to sort of ponder and think about today. So if we go on, I'll put this on, that might help. Here we go. Thank you. Did you do that? Thank you, Phil. I'll keep trying on this one. So we've got some questions. So what do you know about the one who's been given such overwhelming total power and authority over everything you conceive of, everything you can imagine, everything we know, reaching out to the farthest, the universe as far as we can imagine. I mean, he has total and power and authority over all of that. That's incredible. and heaven. Everything we can't imagine. Everything that, or maybe we can imagine parts of it, but it's beyond our experience at the moment. What do we know about this one who has that kind of authority? And then the second question, what do we understand about being a disciple of Jesus? What does that mean? And the third question, how can we go about enabling other people to become disciples of Jesus? So I hope you've got a month or two as we try and work our way through all of that. But let's start with the first question. So here's the first question. Again, what do we know about the one who's been given this authority? When I was 18, I joined the Royal Air Force. As part of the induction process there, I had to promise to obey all those who had legal authority over me. Okay? Hands up and all that, Bible, whatever. Had to promise to obey those in authority over me. Less than 6 months later, I find myself working in an underground operations centre near High Wycombe, which at that time was the headquarters of Strike Command, who were responsible for monitoring and controlling our V-bomber force during the Cold War. So when I went there, it was a real eye-opening experience to see what was actually happening and how close some of these Russian aircraft were coming to our airspace and the games that were being played between the militaries. I also made lots and lots of tea and coffee because I was the lowest of low airmen. And of course, you do all the menial stuff as well. Part of the menial stuff I had to do, I'll come to in a second. But I want to introduce you to two people, two squadron leaders who were over the small teams. So there are teams of people there, 24 hours a day, giving coverage so that all these different things that needed to be done to keep our country safe were done. So I'm in a small team. There's a squadron leader who is the officer who leads the team. So when I arrived there, I was introduced to the first squadron leader, and he was distant, disinterested, not bothered at all. He was very demanding. He was focused very much on using all of us to build his career, up the ladder of his career. That was the kind of person. And I don't know how you react to that kind of person, but I thought, well, if that's your attitude, being a little bit of a rebel, I'll just do what I've got to do, but I'm not going to do more. He was replaced in the course of time, not because he did anything wrong, by a second squadron leader who was very, very different. And the way I learnt that is because one of my menial tasks during night shifts was to go into the back office and to service the photocopier. Now, this is 1969. The photocopier is about 4 or 5 feet tall. It's probably about 6 feet wide, and about, another 4 feet, 5 feet wide. It's enormous, like the old computers used to be, filling a room. So this was the photocopier. And the photocopier had to be stripped, dismantled, cleaned. The toner had to be replaced. And so it was all fit and ready for the office staff to use the next morning. And I did this job as part of, everybody did the job on the team. So I did this job several times and was okay with it. One night, disaster struck. Because having pulled all the rollers out and having placed them carefully on a table, you can imagine, one began to roll. And it's one of those moments where, time stands still, and it rolls, and you're watching, and you can't reach it in time, and it thunders to the floor, and it's bent. Now, as much as I tried, and I did try, I could not get it back into the machine, and I could not get the machine to work. So here I am, remember, lowliest of the low, not very long in the Air Force, facing authority I've just mucked up a very expensive piece of machinery. So I'm worried. No, I'm not worried. I'm panicking. And eventually had to go to the squadron leader and say, look, this is what I've done. What he did was to say, having listened, he said, go back to work, carry on as normal. So for the next hour, I fretted and worried what was going to happen. And then he called me through to the back office. Now I was expecting, you know what I was expecting? I was expecting to be really told off. And he showed me this fully working photocopying machine. He'd spent an hour, somehow or other, getting it to work, bending somehow that very strong piece of metal back into shape. I don't know how he did it, but he got it to work. Now that changed me completely in terms of my relationship with him. Here was somebody who listened. Here was somebody who cared. Here was somebody who understood the mess I was in and the help I needed. And here was somebody who did something about it. He went on to, well, we discovered it, to be a really approachable and open guy who created a fantastic atmosphere in that team. He was a person I willingly served. He was a person I'd go the extra mile for. He was a person I could be really loyal to because of the person he is and what. So back to my question. What do we know about the God who has this authority? What do we know about Jesus? Because it matters. What's in your mind when you think about Jesus? What's your experience of authority working in your life? Some of you have learnt stories about Jesus. We've grown up with that, haven't we? Some have built up quite a lot of information about him. There are lots of people who have a lot to say about Jesus, but nonetheless they don't trust him. They don't believe what he said. They don't take him seriously. They don't recognize his claim to authority or his right to rule over absolutely everything, and perhaps especially over my life. We have a problem with authority. And you can fill in all the blanks here, but thinking about all the different kinds of people and experiences you've had. What clashes have you had? What experiences that have led you maybe to distrust authority, to be suspicious of authority, to be careful about how close you get to authority, about how much you submit to authority, about how much you allow others to have influence over your life. We get very, very twitchy, don't we, and careful through the experiences of being wrongfully led, wrongfully sometimes abused. So think back over your experiences, teachers, family, employers, bosses. They have rank, they have authority, they have power, because authority is about power, isn't it? And the right to use power. They have power. And how has it affected us? And truth be told, lots of us are very cautious about allowing somebody else to have authority over us. Somebody else to have such authority and power that we would yield and surrender our lives, that we would trust and grow in trust and deepen in trust to that person. And lots of people, if we're honest, have struggled with that in their lives. So we say that we believe in Jesus, we trust Jesus, we're following Jesus, but there's all sorts of stuff going on about, can I really trust him? Does he really love me? Is he the person he says he is? And so we have real difficulty, and we need to learn something, like I had to learn about these two different ways of leading. And that taught me a great deal. So as I grew on from that point, so here we are, 18, 19, I would look at people. I would look at situations, I would look at organizations, and I'd be doing exactly what you'd be doing. I'd be weighing it up, I'd be challenging it, I'd be checking it out. Can I trust this person, this organization? Am I going to give myself to serve? Am I going to allow them to have influence in my life? So, let's go to the next question. Okay. So the next question then is, what do we understand being a disciple of Jesus is? Matthew 28 again. Therefore go and make disciples. Baptize them, teach them to obey all that I have commanded you. One of the things I've just done is jumped over a vast number of pages of my notes. So let's just go back a sec. Authority. Does Jesus have authority? Is it an authority we should yield to? And I think it's important to run back over these. Mark chapter 2, verse 10. But I want you to know that the Son of Man has authority, says Jesus to this group of people in Capernaum. So to this man who's paralyzed, lying down there, I will tell you to get up and take your mat and go home. And so he did. Told him that his sins were forgiven, told him to go, get up. The man picked up his mat. They walked. He walked in full view of them all. This amazed everyone, and they praised God, saying, "We have never seen anything like this." And that's the story, isn't it, running through the New Testament Gospels. Here was Jesus. He showed authority over sickness in healing loads and loads of people. He showed authority over demons and over evil by setting people free. He showed authority over Satan by breaking the power he has to wreck our lives. He showed authority over nature by converting water into wine, or feeding multitudes with scraps, or stilling a raging storm, or walking on water. Jesus was amazing. Jesus had authority that all sorts of people were beginning to recognize. Mark chapter 1, verse 22. The people were amazed at his teaching because he taught them as one who had authority, not as the teachers of the law. Mark chapter 10, verse 42. Jesus called them, the disciples, together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them," which is exactly the experience of many of us, that somebody else has authority and lords it over, uses that authority in the wrong way. Well, Jesus is saying, that's the way they do it. But he said, not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be the first must be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. And then in John chapter 7, verse 45, the high priest had sent off the temple guards to arrest Jesus. And then we read, finally the temple guards went back to the chief priests and the Pharisees, who asked them, why didn't you bring them in? Why didn't you bring him in? And they answered, no one ever spoke the way this man did. So wherever Jesus went, he demonstrated an authority. He demonstrated a quality that made people stop. They had to make a decision about this Jesus. Is he what he claims to be, or is he not? They stand in amazement. They stand wrestling in their hearts and minds. How do I respond to this person and what he does and how he does it? And as I say, that's our choice as well. We have to go through that, don't we? We have to work out, how do we respond to this one who has such authority? So let me go back to this question. What do we understand being a disciple of Jesus is? How many of you would say you're Christians? How many times does it say in the Bible that these people who follow Jesus are called Christians. 3 times. How many times in the Bible does it say those people who follow Jesus as disciples? How many times do you think it says that? 269 times. So, do you think of yourself as a Christian or as a disciple of Jesus? Are you a disciple? What do we understand about being a disciple is? Probably an easier word for us is apprentice. We can understand what apprentices are. You know, whether we become an apprentice to a bricklayer, a master craftsman, a musician, a great artist, an engineer. We become apprentice because we want to learn from them. We want to be close to them. We want to understand how they do the things they do. We want to have the skills they have and share in the passion and heart that they have. We become apprenticed in order to learn and to grow. So a disciple is like that, isn't it? Like being an apprentice. John Mark Comer, who some of you will have heard his name before, I'm sure, said this. He said, to follow Jesus is to become his apprentice. It's to organize your entire life around 3 driving goals. 1, be with Jesus. 2, become like Jesus. And 3, do as Jesus did. What's a disciple? Somebody who is going to be with Jesus, somebody who's going to become like Jesus, somebody who is going to do as Jesus did. Dallas Willard, who's another influential Christian thinker of our time, is very challenging. And he believes that the Christian church generally has failed to make disciples of Jesus. Instead, we're focused on making people members of particular churches. So we've made them good Anglicans. We've made them good Catholics. We've made them good Pentecostals. We've made them good evangelicals. We've taught them how to worship in a particular way. That's the right way, of course. And we've taught them how to behave in certain ways. And we've encouraged them to, well, by and large, be spectators. Because all the action happens up at the front. So the vicar, you see, is the star of the show, really. Yeah, the pastor is the man or the woman, you know, that we sort of pay and expect to do all the work. We sit back, let them get on with it. Danger. And my, so lots of you will know I was an Anglican vicar for a long time. And one of the sadnesses of my life, one of the struggles, if you like, one of the senses of I wish I hadn't done that, was a part of what I did. I was rebelling. I would never have made a bishop because I just fought against the system so much. But the system nonetheless required me to say certain words, to do certain things, to give the impression that in a funeral or wedding or whatever, you know, that, wow, God loves us all. Well, he does love us all. But you know what I'm trying to say here? That somehow we're all good Christians. Because the institution worked that way. We can be caught up into being good, this, that, the other, but not disciples. And there was a hunger and a tension in my life all through. This can't be right, because that's what it looks like. That's what I see in Jesus. That's what I see in the Bible, but that's not what we've got in church. Church somehow has built nice Christians, but not disciples of Jesus, who will be with Jesus, who will become like Jesus, who will do as Jesus did. In Matthew 11:27, Jesus said, "All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one comes to the Son except the Father. No one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him." Now this is what it's about, isn't it? That Jesus is calling people to walk with him, to know him, to learn from him. And as we do that, he says, I'll reveal to you more and more and more. He says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So being a disciple is going to be somebody who, has been attracted to Jesus. Maybe with lots of questions about Jesus. Somebody who has seen in Jesus something that appeals to them, something that connects with them, something that touches their heart, their mind, their spirit. And they say, I want to know more about you. And there will be a huge amount we don't know. And we won't trust and we won't believe and we won't understand and there'll be all sorts of stuff. But he says, that's okay, because we're going to go on a journey together. That's what being a disciple is. Come and be with me. And I'll teach you that you can trust me. I'll teach you that you can have confidence in who I am. I'll teach you how to be like me. I'll be patient with you and gentle with you, and I will walk with you step by step through all the messiness of your life, gradually enabling you to be like me. That's his call, isn't it? Authorization. Authorization is about permission giving. When I was ordained in the Church of England, I was authorized. I was given permission to do what a vicar does within the institution of the church. You can baptize, and you can marry, and you can bury, and you can teach, and you can pastor, and you can spend endless hours on committees. And permission given. And the wonderful thing about Jesus is that he's a permission giver. I authorize you, he says. You won't be experts. You'll mess up all sorts of stuff, but I authorize you. I give you permission. An influential person in my life, and many, many others, was an American called John Wimber. And God used him to kind of galvanize and reintroduce into the life of the church in this country a lot about the work and the person of the Holy Spirit. And so he demonstrated, and he did exactly what I'm describing here. He was embodying Jesus. He was showing us this is the heart of Jesus. And then he did, he just, in a very, very laid-back way, he would pray, people would be healed, all sorts of wonderful things happening. People are full of the Spirit. And he said, there's wonderful thing about Jesus, he says, is that when Jesus invites you to become a disciple, the phrase that John Wimber uses says, you get to play too. Mm-hmm. You get to play. It isn't all about me, says Jesus. It's not me hoarding all the fun to myself and the glory to myself. You get to play. You get to walk the walk that I walk. You get to pray for the sick and see healing. You get to confront Satan and the demonic and see the demons flee. You get to, not many walk on water, I don't think, but there have been quite a few other wonderful sort of feeding of multitudes of people, all sorts of things. Jesus says, come and join in. You get to play too. As you learn to trust me, as you learn to walk with me, as you let me teach you how to do these things, you get to play. And God invites you and me into that dance, into that joy, into that life. As we spend time with him, as we become like him, we begin to do the things he does. Nowhere near as good as he does it. Nowhere near as frequently as he does it, perhaps. But you know, if somebody gets healed, if I can look back over my life and I can point to various instances and say, I know God did that. And that person's life has been utterly changed. And you just think, that's good. That's the kingdom. That's playing, that's being part of what he wants for us. He wants that for all of us. Pete Gregg, who is another name some of you will know, I'm sure. He's partly responsible for the Lectio 365 that a lot of people use. And a week or two back, he put some questions up, and I just want us to pause and slow up a little bit and to consider some of these questions. So here's the first one. Do I talk more about Jesus than I talk to Jesus? So do I talk to Jesus? Do I spend time with him? Do I listen to him? Does he talk to me? Do I worship God more in public than in private? Is God creating a heart of worship in you? And it will come out in all sorts of different ways. For some people, you know, they'll be able to burst into song and they'll remember, you know, but it's just, how do we worship? How do we express our love, our thankfulness, our joy in Jesus? Do I attend church without giving? Whether my time, my money, skills, secretly, openly, sacrificially. So am I a disciple? Am I a disciple? Am I learning? Am I doing? Am I giving? Am I growing? Am I trying? So it's a lovely book called The Life of Try. God calls us to try. And we'll fail, but we'll also win. We'll also succeed. Try. Are the goals of my life to be with Jesus, to be like Jesus, to do as Jesus did? Search my heart, God, and know my heart. Test me. Know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me. Lead me in the way everlasting. And then finally, very, very briefly, how are we going to go about enabling other people to become disciples of Jesus? And I do believe that the answer is not in clever evangelistic campaigns or slick advertising, or more money, or better buildings, or the brilliant use of social media. All of those have a part to play, but they're not really ultimately the most important. Dallas Willard says this: the church is always at its best when it had little or none of these things. All it needs to fulfill Christ's purpose on earth is the quality of life he makes real in the life of his disciples. It's the quality of life he makes real in the life of his disciples. We all know the stories of the early church, from the Acts of the Apostles onward, in the way that people were drawn to these Christians, these disciples, because they saw something in them of the glory and the reality and the presence of God. They saw demonstrated love in action in all sorts of different ways. So I want you to imagine a community of people. Imagine us as a community of God's people, more and more living out the Sermon on the Mount. More and more being the kind of people he wants to nurture and develop amongst us. To be a people both of compassion and love, but also of power and authority. A people who make changes in people's lives for good, who are servants and not masters. Imagine a people like that. They're the people who are going to change the world. The people who, when they look at you and me, see Jesus. Because we're spending time with him, we're becoming like him, and we're doing the things he does.